What about them?
What ends up happening to those? They go to auction?
Yeah, there's actually 3 sitting in the FSB right now, because the police got 3 cars this year, I believe, right? They got 2 cars and a detective car, right? So there's 3 cars. We put them on the public surplus website.
Yeah.
And then it puts it out there for 3 weeks, and everyone bids them up, and if you wanna bid them up, you can, but.
I was
then
thinking, I mean, for some of the
they-
town, for the town people,
They
you know,
can,
versus buying brand new vehicles.
So we do, and you've seen them, our
Well,
engineering
yeah, that's what I
departments
mean,
drive
think of
around
it.
with them and all
Right.
that. They
Right.
just become more and more costly to keep up, obviously. And cops beat them pretty bad for 5 or 6 or 8 years.
Right.
They're driving them, we're inheriting them with 150,000 miles on them, but a lot of engine wear. We burn through them. And when we
Yeah.
just can't take it anymore, and we can't repair them anymore, and it doesn't make sense, we move on. But, you know, these escapes for $23,000,
I know.
I mean, they're just gonna be good for 8 or 10 years
Yeah.
without doing a thing.
more than that. We do look through the police cars before they go. When I say we, our master mechanic, if there's a good one that they're turning into us, and we have to like retire something else in our fleet that's worse than that.
You scavenge it.
We grab it, but I do that through the first selectman. I don't unilaterally make that decision. I say, hey, this is a good one. Can we retire this one? But one has to leave, because then otherwise we'd be growing the fleet,
Yeah.
which we don't do.
'Cause, yeah, I would just think that you'd be able to get another 2-3 years out of, the amount of cop cars that they retire every year, isn't it, don't they retire 2 every year, 2 to 3 every year? And they
Depends
I
on
mean,
what
I
this
don't know
board-
the exact number, but even
There,
if you
there,
can-
there is a Crown Vic that drives around town. It's got plate 115. That's
Yeah.
our loaner vehicle in the highway department. We service all these vehicles that you see, 140. Well, they get all service in highway department. So if something breaks down, we give them the 115. If one of these 3 police cars is better than that,
Right.
then the 115 goes. So we're always trying to keep the best fleet in there, which I think answers your question. If there's a good one, it doesn't go out the door.
Right. Because even if it's a spare, I mean, not a spare, but you have multiple cars. If something goes down, like you said, you have something else to use.
We always make that evaluation to keep the fleet. We want to get rid of the dogs, and we want to keep the ones that are running.
You want to keep your mechanic employed too, though.
They're plenty busy. I don't think they're worried about that.
Any more conversation about the special appropriation for $68,500? Hearing none, do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve a special appropriation in the amount of up to $68,500 to purchase a skid steer from the following accounts. $60,477.86 from the remaining balance of the 2016-17 streetlight acquisition program, $8,022.14 from CNRE account 32-60-120-100-002, proceeds from the sale of vehicles.
Thank you. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. For your records, you understand that she struck out the vendor's name? No, this is also on this one. This one had the vendor name in it as well.
Oh, W.Y. Clark.
Yep. So we want to cross that out. Okay, I have a motion and a second. Any more conversation about the motion before us? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, so moved 600.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have a quick break?
We can have a quick break. Absolutely.
I have to go get my coffee.
I was going to say, but too early. I have a microwave someplace.
That's right, that might be, yeah. Okay. All right, that's that. This is this business.
Be happy when I can put these piles in the basement with the past years.
I know.
So we
My poor
did,
wife, she comes in the living room, I've got these just piles of paper everywhere.
I think this is where I got a little confused. The fire marshal's looking for a super cab too.
Yeah, I have questions about sometimes the quality of vehicles that they're getting. You know, the super cab,
You know why he's doing this? So he can throw a smoky uniforms in the back.
not the super cab, no, they have to put them in the back. They need a pickup truck so they
Yeah.
can put them,
I know, but they don't.
but the super cab, it can't go inside the
I know,
cab.
so why do they have a 250?
They're gonna say, because they bring lots of people to parties, I mean, fires. Did I say that out loud?
Okay, well, I'll count on you to spearhead that discussion.
Okay, so
All
that
right.
was that, I think.
I put everything on my computer.
Yeah,
I couldn't keep track of all this different.
it was, yeah, I had charts and graphs.
I had to.
Be nice.
That's just-
The show starts at 9.
What the
You
heck?
guys can get this thing done. The show starts at 9. What is the show? I'm making
You have TiVo?
Oh, my phone.
Do you have TiVo?
I didn't know.
For some very, it's not
Got
TiVo
your phone
anymore.
call on landline.
Oh, right.
You
I
were
did.
knocking at the door.
I did, I knocked at your door.
We still recording? We don't need Anna.
We didn't
I can
unrecord,
do it
did we?
without Anna.
All right, back in session at 8:16. We open up item C for continued deliberations. Deliberations for continuing questions about anything that we have before us, and then for the board to get into the meat of actually discussing what we have. So as far as questions for, is there, anybody still have outstanding questions that we need answered? Does anybody have new information that they would like to share with the rest of the board? Say about the ambulance, for example.
Yes.
Bill, just fix your microphone.
Much better.
During the budget presentations, the fire department had come before us and had talked a little bit about the Ambulance Association of East Lyme and how they are a not-for-profit organization. And I had asked some questions that weren't able to be answered that evening, and I believe the chair or president, I'm not really sure, was going to get back to me with the information. Not having received that, I went to guidestar.org and pulled down the 990 form, which is the annual tax report that they file. And the most recent one available, though, was through 2017. The most recent one available from guidestar.org. So I don't know if they filed one for 2018. I don't have access to that. But I've given everybody a copy this evening of 2017. And I would like to talk about that when we get to the fire department's budget.
16. You gave us 2016.
Did I? Does everybody have 2016?
Yeah, that's what I have, 2016.
Well, let me amend that by saying that's the most recent one I was able to pull down.
That would make more sense.
Okay.
Why are you thinking that? What do you mean?
Well, if it was 2017, 2018 just ended and they probably haven't filed yet, because they have some time to file if they're going the calendar year.
I think their
My
calendar,
corporate hasn't
I
filed
think,
yet
so
for
this
18.
was filed when, October?
But if you can start this far
11/27.
back, it would be a 16, so,
Yeah.
anyway.
Okay.
Of 2017, so it's filed almost a year later?
If this one was filed 11/17, you would expect there to be one filed 11/18,
Right.
right? I mean, if they
Unless file
extend
some
6,
extension or whatever.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
I've certainly done that.
just assuming
Just
that they
make sure.
do that every year.
Let me just make sure I copied the right one for you folks. Oh, what's the department? What's the department?
217218.
Yeah, I happened to pull down 2014, 15, and 16. So 2016 is the most recent copy that I could find.
Okay. Okay. Is there anybody else that would like to bring anything into our deliberation pile of papers and data? Any other new information? Okay. So what we've talked about in the past and what we said we would do today for deliberations is we would go through and discuss where we felt we were on each one of the groups of money. So if we look at general government, debt services, capital, Board of Ed, and then the total, then we can see what the different things are that impact the mill rate. We have non-taxable revenue based on the revenue sheets that Anna gave us for $13,230,330,388. Correct?
What are you looking at, Bill?
When I go through her revenue sheets, everything that was non-taxable is 13,230,388.
That's your sheet, that's your
That's,
spreadsheet.
that's her sheet. So that's,
I don't have his spreadsheet, but I do have the.
So do we have a copy of that, Bill?
that's in the book, the revenue sheet that was in the book.
Is the revenue sheet you handed out tonight more current? Is that like another iteration of that?
That's the current year.
Oh, current year. Sorry, my bad.
This is the, March, and on March 31st, 19 is the most current one.
But that's the
So you're, this is from her projected revenue for next year. So I'm trying to get this to,
Right.
Okay, let me go look at that.
That's the budget summary.
Okay, it's in your budget book, okay, not the one that came with our,
Just before the first line of the budget,
yes,
revenue.
yes.
okay? So the total on this sheet says, where's the taxes on this thing? The first line item is
First line.
taxes, okay.
First.
So the taxes is 61,386, 468. The total is 74,616, 858. Are those two numbers correct? That's the latest and current?
74 million, you mean?
Yes, and I believe I subtracted those two numbers from each other.
And what did you come up with?
So let me do it again to make sure I,
It's 13 something.
Right, but I think you were using, were you using the revenue sheet that was updated on April 2nd, or were you using the one that was distributed on March 13th?
313.19.
Yeah, you need, that's, so,
There's an updated,
there was an updated
Yes,
one
April 2nd.
distributed on, April 2nd.
Bill,
okay.
Right
And
here.
so, the total other revenues is $13,206,563.
13,200 and what?
6,
06,563.
563.
That's the non-tax revenue.
Yes.
Okay. The adjusted grand list, based on our conversation earlier today, is 2,163,101,552. Is that correct?
yes.
163, 111, 552.
2,163,111,552. Okay. So let me change this number here to 13,206,563.
Was that in something you handed out to us?
Yes, it was in this.
It was in the email that Camille asked for, but it had a couple of qualifiers in it.
But there was just
But
something.
in this, yes, in this package here, there's also a grand list summary.
I know.
13,206.
And it was attached to something, and someone
563.
refreshed my
saw it? You
recollection.
saw it
I
too?
saw it, but
I
I
never
can't remember
saw-
that it was attached. It was attached to something in this
So
packet.
it wasn't, it was not in the email that Camille got, because she forwarded it to the rest of the board, and that number is not in there. I mean, I got it from Hannah because I called her today, but I just wondered if it was in here somewhere and I overlooked it.
So this grand list sheet that you gave us tonight says 2,183,924,019.
Here it is.
Yeah.
And then from that number, you added and subtracted something? And that's what you got, was her math from that number.
So we increase it by there's an increase for an estimated supplemental motor vehicle value of $17,227,898. And then we do a subtraction for a HEPA, which is $2,867,819. And then the net is $2,198,284,098.
And I forgot how we got from there.
And
This-
then our assumption is that we collect 98.4%.
That's what it was. No, yep, with collection rate, okay.
So with all that math, it becomes 2,163,111,552.
Yes.
Okay. And then the other fixed cost is debt services, and that's 5599145.
I think you,
Okay. So when we start calculating the mill rate, those three costs clearly play a role in this total assessment. So we start off with a government proposed budget of 18,678,733, and that's the number we're adjusting from the general government side.
Say the number
say
again.
that number, yeah.
18,678,733.
I don't have that. So are you talking about adopted or amended? Because that was the source of a little bit of.
So
That's the budget book starting number.
that's this one, Lisa. Not the 1920 proposed budget in the budget section. And then
Okay, the budget,
if you go to your budget tab.
right, I know the report you mean.
So I put a
Well,
red tick next to the general government proposed.
Yes, I see it. I don't know why mine is wrong.
For a while.
Oh, don't use that.
I know.
That's wrong.
Yeah, that was misleading.
Yeah, okay.
So this is dated 3/13/19. Is that the latest? That's the original budget proposal we started out with when we started going through our books.
Thanks to you.
You're
Excuse me,
welcome.
Phil.
Okay. And then the starting Board of Ed budget in this book is 49, this is all proposed 1920. So the Board of Ed proposal starts at 49,497,250.
Yep.
Okay? Okay. So any adjustments that we do tonight, any things that we talk about, that's just to get everybody at the same baseline. So when we start talking about deltas, we're all talking about the same starting point.
So, Bill, is it worthwhile for us to agree on our new capital number now? Because we have money to take out of
That's what I
it.
want to do. I just want to make sure that we're all starting from the same
Okay.
point. And then we can go through each one of these kind of combinations in whichever order we feel and have that conversation. Okay? Okay. So Lisa proposed we start with capital first, which is fine because we've had some conversations about the 19,000 last night and the 140 whatever thousand tonight, 145,000,
Yep.
right? So tonight we found 143, 142, 363. Is that where we ended
Just
up?
42,360.
42, 363.
393.
But can I just point out to the board that a portion of that is in the board's budget, so
Right.
you're not gonna make a reduction to the town's portion of capital for that. So I just wanna make that clear.
Yeah, it's a good point.
So that goes in the Board of Ed column
Yep.
of adjustments.
And what was that
For
number
the-
again? 10 something, 10.5?
The 10,786, did I get that number right?
Yes, 10,786.
So,
Okay,
but,
so the 10,786 goes to the Board of Ed line.
right, but the thing with the Board of Ed is the way that the statutes are written, you give the board a number that you, for a reduction in their budget. You're
Right.
not supposed to
Well,
say, you have to
Right.
take 10,786.
No, but we are allowed to say, based on our review of the budget,
Okay,
we think
okay.
that there's $10,000 margin in
Okay,
the
okay.
acquisition firm. We
I
think
hear
that
you.
there's,
Okay,
they're suggestions and not requirements, right?
okay. Yeah, so.
Okay. So from the town's acquisition then, we're saying 31,427 plus. God, this
Well, I
thing
have it
is
at
flipping.
$31,607.
That's what I have.
Repeat the number, 10.
$31,607 is the annual payment in this year's budget for the 3 vehicles that we're paying with this year's dollars.
31,000, I'm I'm sorry, give me the last three digits again.
607.
607. And to that, we want to add the 19,000 that we had last night?
Well,
No.
you already made the motion to reduce that from the capital budget at your meeting on Monday.
But the capital budget that we starting out with here, the capital says 841, 728.
Okay,
It's still
okay,
there.
I got it,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
19.
So of that 19, that all goes directly to acquisition fund, or does that get spread over a couple of years?
That was the cash payment,
That was how much is needed in next year's budget.
Okay.
Which means our total, what I have, I have that our capital would be reduced, including the 19,000 and these vehicle payments. That would take us down to 791, 121 if we made no other changes. Is that what you have?
If we take this 33,505 and subtract it from the 851,
Plus the 19 from the other day.
this includes the 19. This
Well,
includes the
84
31,607 plus the 19.
Oh, okay, whatever. So what did you
So-
get for a total?
Well, I put that under general fund, but maybe that shouldn't go under general fund. If that goes into capital, then it's 33,507. So it turns to 808, 220, oh, but that should be a negative, shouldn't it? Oh, that's a positive. So 841 minus 33 is 808.
Okay, where did you take the 19 out?
That's part of the 33 plus 19.
Anna, you
No.
took out,
that's
the
$1,900
$19,000 for the police server out of the CIP
Out of
plan on
Department
Monday.
724.
And it also came out of 724.
Correct, because you made the motion at your meeting.
Right. So in this, but we don't have we have a corrected CIP spreadsheet that you sent to us that was color-coded, but we don't have a corrected 724 budget page.
Right, because
So-
typically when we go through and you make your reductions to the budget, we get them all recorded,
Right.
and then you'll get a list of what all of them are. We
Right.
wouldn't necessarily go and redo that.
And that's fine, I'm just trying to follow the logic here.
Okay.
Right, so where was the $19,000 in 724?
What specific account?
Yeah,
Police
Right.
equipment, it's listed as 40,
It's
464.
464.
okay, got it.
Okay. So if I subtract 50,
That's what I got.
I hit 19, I hit 1,900
Yeah,
instead of 19,000.
so it is 791, 121.
Yeah.
That's what okay.
Spreadsheets are neat, as long as you put the right numbers in them. Okay. So for capital plan, we have before us some choices to remove $50,607. Do we want to talk about further cuts to the capital plan? Yes, we want to talk about it. Is there any other items on the capital plan that we wanted to talk about? Who wants to talk about cutting?
Would
So
you know,
here-
oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Lisa.
No,
So here's the question that I was saving for deliberations. When we budget CNRE funds in the current fiscal year, that goes to the CNRE fund. And it just
Correct.
builds and builds until we spend it on something. So the other night I had to ask for an accounting of that CNRE fund.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I don't have a good idea of how much is in there and what remains in there relative to vehicle acquisition plan.
Well, CNRE, we don't, for CNRE, the vehicle acquisition doesn't go through that. You know, we pay for the vehicles and then we get reimbursed by the financing company. So it's not a part of CNRE.
So the CNRE is an account, right?
A fund, it's a fund.
That has debits and credits depending on when we're going to fund something, correct? I mean, if we're putting money into the CNRE fund, we're putting $130,000
Mhm.
of revenues next year into that fund for the revow, right?
Right,
So then that adds to the CNRE fund,
Correct.
And then when we go to pay the people who perform that service,
Mm-hmm,
the money comes out.
yes.
So what I was looking for was an accounting of that fund for the
Okay.
fiscal year.
You gave that to us, right? Isn't that
Yes.
what this is? Is this what you're
Yeah, I
looking
had
for?
given that,
Yes,
yeah.
I think
Yeah,
this
maybe.
is it.
Let me see.
An analysis of
months ago.
senior fund
No,
expenditures.
No, that says March
Recently.
19th.
It's
March
recent,
19
yeah.
is the version I have.
What- Is this for this fiscal year?
It's, that was updated for you through March 19th.
Okay. And
Your
so
goodness.
so the beginning balance, I'm looking for the beginning balance.
I think she handed this out to me, and you weren't here, that's why you don't have it.
Well, I'm sure she gave it to me. I'm sure it's in my pile. But yeah, I did miss this meeting.
Good.
All right, I'll look at that later. Thank you. So my question is, again, the CN, anything that's coded in brown, we're setting aside revenue dollars next year to go for that specific purpose.
In CNRE,
We
yes.
don't necessarily, and that's coming from revenues, it's not being bonded. We're just earmarking dollars from the revenues to go into that fund.
So what we're doing in the general fund is we're budgeting to subsidize CNRE for those specific items. that are-
Right, that you're planning on coming up in the next year,
Yes.
okay?
Or not the next year. Right, so
It dep-
servers we hold up, maybe we'll buy one every 5 or 8 years, or, you know, sidewalk we built up, or HVAC systems, you know.
Right,
it's gonna
but-
be 10 years.
But you're earmarking dollars
Earmark
every
Yeah.
year to go
annually
into that
for
fund,
that.
which
It might
does,
not get spent.
it might not get spent, and it definitely
sure I heard
does,
that.
and it does not get returned at the end of the year if it's not spent. So that's
See,
just a fund that's building, building, building. And that was the sheet that I was looking for, I just couldn't get my hands on it before. I'm sure I have it here. So I wanted
I bet
to
Karen will
know.
make a copy for you if you want it. Would you mind
Yeah.
doing that, Karen?
Yeah, I've got one too, so we can make some copies. We can make some
Let me just
copies.
see what the.
Of course, I gotta find it, oh, here it is.
Mhm.
Right.
So if I'm looking at this correctly, I'll have to spend some time with it. How much money is in the fund? 556,000?
You have different totals for each.
That's what it looks like, 556, 199, right?
And I don't really know what that means. As of 3/19 and as of 6/30, there's two different dates in the third number column.
Yeah, right.
I'm trying to understand, what is the balance of the CNRE fund? So on this sheet, which column represents how much we have in the savings account?
So you're trying to make sure you're trying to look at what we've budgeted for CNRE expenditures in the plan and trying to measure
See this
Right,
things that we have in
because,
there.
yeah, because was
Yes,
anybody
good.
else surprised that we had all that money left over from the vehicle acquisition plan? So like if we're earmarking all these dollars to go towards these expenses and they don't add up to what we thought it was going to add up to be,
We have excess funds in there.
so maybe we don't need to put as 130 in this year for the revow, if we know that there's some extra funds in there that wasn't used from something else.
Can you mix and match?
Well, so if, I mean, we'd have to take actions to reallocate funds.
But we
But if-
can't take action if we don't know what's in there and what isn't. I
No,
guess
no,
that's,
My point is, if you specifically put money away for HVAC, and next year you wanna steal money to.
it's not
to pay-
stealing.
well, if
It's
you-
not
well,
stealing.
But you can't borrow it. You
No,
can't
if
pay
we
it back,
put,
but-
what my point is, if we approve $10,000 to go into CNRE for an HVAC and it only costs 8,000, what happens to the 2,000 that's left
stays
over?
in the fund for the
Right.
for the next HVAC system. 'Cause
Well,
we
that's-
have several
does
buildings
it?
in town. Yes, it's not HVAC for town hall, it's HVAC systems around town. And my point was, if we're short next year with our reval, are we gonna just scoop up some of that $550,000 and take it from all the other monies and pools that we've been saving for to go do that.
Can you do that?
Can we do it?
Well, see, I don't know
We
that.
probably can't
that-
with action, I'm hearing from Anna.
That's what I'm trying
Is
to
that
figure out.
wise? Because then now you're gonna be short when the HVAC system goes.
Yeah, but we're never smart enough to know exactly how much we have to put in different corners, right? So there's always gonna be places where we look at a fund and we say, you know, this is growing at 10,000 a year, and we're spending 8,000 a year, maybe we need to turn that notch down a little bit. And by the way, there's a balance in there that maybe we can reallocate.
Right.
That's kind of where I think these questions are coming from is,
Thank you, Bill, you verbalized that perfectly.
okay,
That's a gift he has.
yeah. I'm gonna leave that alone.
So to answer my
Smarter
question,
than I thought.
what is, based on the sheet that you handed out to us, what is the balance of that fund as of today?
So, 556,000.
Okay. I just want to make sure I can read the report correctly.
And can you tell if the goes into and the goes out of every year is about right, or is it getting bigger year over year?
So, like, for example, there are other funds that may not have been allocated at this point. For example, the rents that the Board of Ed has collected over time for the rent,
Learn or-
the Learn rent.
So,
But
yeah.
those funds are, specific for.
But without getting
Board
into
of
each
Ed.
specific line item, right, we're looking for for this balance, like we look at the fund balance, like we look at other things.
Right.
Is more going in there than should go in there? If we've got fund balance and contingency and NRE, are we saving more than we need to? Maybe, maybe not.
Well, right, and do we want to pass that on to the taxpayer?
Well, yeah, and can we just reallocate that over to the fund balance, so now our fund balance goes up, so now our appraisers are happier?
Right, good point.
Well, I mean, so a large portion of that is set aside for the future reval. My recommendation.
200 and, what, 19,000 is
Right,
set
yes.
aside for the rebound. I
So-
think that's what you told us the other night.
Right, so my recommendation would be that at another time during the year, we do an analysis of the fund and make recommendations for any of the small balances for certain projects that have lapsed, and put that back into an undesignated bucket, and that way, and we'll track it that way, and then at some point, make a decision on how to reallocate any funds.
So I would just add to that, if I could, there could conceivably be, some monies in here that if we don't need them, we could use them for this budget.
Right. So in my thinking, my line of questioning was leading me down the road saying, instead of $130,000 for the next 2 years for the revow, why don't we put away 125? And then that'll give us time to look at the CNRE fund, make assessments if there's another 10 in there that we could grab for this.
So those overages that we were talking about, were they hundreds of dollars or were they thousands of dollars? You said maybe there's a little bit of extra money from projects that have been finished that still have balances. Are those balances in the thousands range or are they in hundreds range?
Tens of thousands.
Or tens of thousands.
Tens of thousands, I'm really interested.
That's what you're looking for.
But those are funds that are, HVAC, the things that we fund every year is where those, where those balances are. So if we were to take away from that, then the funds wouldn't be available for their intended purpose. But there are some smaller projects that it would make sense for us to go through a process, close out those balances, and then have them available to reallocate to other projects at some point in the future.
So, Anna, in the past, you gave us a nice total on this CIP of the funds from all the different sources. And we didn't do that this year. Could you just include that? Like, I'm totaling up on my calculator all that we have allocated earmarked for CNRE.
But that's at the very end of the report.
I don't see a total there unless I'm,
Next to the colors.
oh, it is at the end. I didn't know I had another page.
The colors.
Sorry. Okay, so there's our total, Camille, 365. for this year for CNRE. We have 5 something in there. Right? If you look at the last page of our
CIP,
CIP,
365.
yep, there's a total in brown.
What page?
So,
Three.
page 5 of the plan.
I'm not looking at the right things.
Here, this one that,
I only have 3 pages.
that Annie emailed out to us. Look on the
The
last,
color-coded one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, gotcha.
the very last page, there's a total
Mm-hmm.
of 365. So that's kind of an interesting question then.
But remember, of that total, 170 of it is the full value for the police vehicles that we're gonna purchase in the acquisition plan.
Right, but that's in the total, right? You totaled all
Right.
the brown funds.
Right, okay.
That's why I was totaling them all up myself, but you did it and I didn't see the page. So is that something that we want to consider reducing some allocation to that and taking it?
Well, I brought that up for the board to consider. I don't know how you want to handle that.
That's why I asked. The question is that there's only small values in the excessive, in the funds that are, in the projects that have been closed, and there's still some balance. If the remaining balance is $200, then it's not worth considering. I think we should move that into our fund balance so that it's accessible,
No,
if we can
it's-
take action to do that, because we have to grow that account. I don't have a feel for whether or not there's anything significant there, or if it's just, yes, there's 500,000 there, and we expect to spend 500,000 this year. And
So-
that's where I don't have
so-
a feel for.
So even though we just appropriated 80,000 and another $60,000 tonight from leftover funds in CNRE,
That wasn't CNRE, that was the vehicle acquisition plan. Okay, so that was not in CNRE.
so that's another fund that we should.
Well, it's not a fund, it's, like every year when we come before you to do the appropriation for the vehicle acquisition plan, we appropriate a certain amount of money and that gets funded through a financing deal. It's funds that were remaining from the financing deal.
Okay, but still, the point being, it looks like there could be other opportunities where there are tens of $1,000s that remain unspent. I don't know. I have no idea. It's just a thought.
All right, so I'll start the discussion. How do we feel about moving 50,000 out of CNRE? Because we have 560 in there. Our total plan for next year using CNRE funds is 365, so that would be, the fund would be excess funded 200,000, right at this point, it seems. So I'm suggesting we move 50 out of that and use it for, put it in our fund balance or something, but not leave it sitting idle there doing nothing for us.
They have to go through the appropriations process.
Well, the mechanics are one thing, I'm just interested in the philosophy.
I think if
Or
we're gonna
just don't
move it.
fund it 50,000.
Yeah.
Would it be better just to take 50,000 off a reval? I mean, it's the
Okay.
same thing.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Instead
yeah.
of taking money out,
Okay,
let's
that's
not put
good.
money in.
Okay, that's fine.
We'll just shortchange one of the funds and then I think maybe off-season, we should roll up our sleeves and look at CNRE and reevaluate. I mean, it might be an off-season move. It might be something we do
Okay.
It's
in
just,
September.
But the reason why I suggest a revow is because we're not paying for that this
It's
year.
gotta be
It's just
absolutely.
an earmark. So that will buy us the time we need to do the proper analysis of the CNRE account.
Got it.
Good call. What do you think, Bill?
I like the idea of not putting it in there if the money is in a contingency fund or in a fund balance fund, or if it's somewhere else. I don't feel confident that the CRNRE fund has extra money in it. But when we know, like for example, the reval, we know we've got 2 years to react, but I don't want to spend an extra 50,000 next year because we shorted it 50,000 this year. So I feel uncomfortable not knowing what the day-to-day float in that account or that CNRE group is.
Is there anything that stands out that obviously is money, it's a bucket of money
It's a
that we're
flow
never
kind of
spending?
account, there's money going in, there's
I
money
know,
coming
but
out, and I
it's-
can't
Is there
see,
anything?
I can't see a
You have
value
a sheet in front of you, is there
Yeah.
anything that
You mean the
think-
CNRE account or the
You have a
CIP?
sheet that's,
The
look at the
analysis.
same computer screen that you have in front of you, or you two have, and, you know,
I mean, a good portion of it is all in things that are,
You talk,
What,
Mark, are you talking about this
What, Anna?
report?
yeah.
Okay.
a good portion of it is what, Anna?
it's all like, the HVAC funds, the town roof replacement, the sidewalk repairs,
The boat,
the
the
servers,
boat dock.
Cheney Park restrooms.
see if we're
So
little
it's like
thousands
all,
here, and there's
like,
100
things that
here,
we're
and those kind of
actively
things there.
saving
Yeah,
for.
okay. Skimming those off are fine.
But we're not saving for
But I
them
don't wanna dig a
anymore,
hole because we know
right?
next
Because they're
year we
not on
have
this
to
year's
buy this.
CIP plan.
Yeah, we're not putting more money into them, but it's buckets of money we're in
Going
the
to
process
need.
of, like the Cheney Park bathrooms, or well, we are putting money away for sidewalks, I think 10,000 or something. We put 10,000 away every year or something like that.
Mhm.
HVAC system,
Yeah.
you know.
So, I mean, the purpose of the fund is to build up resources
Reserves,
so that we have
Yeah, I get
funds
it.
set aside at some future point in time to be able to use them. And so if, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, but if we do that, then we're, in some ways, you know, we're defeating the purpose of setting the fund up to do
Okay.
that.
So I would be okay with this if we commit to doing the analysis in the off-budget season and returning the money to the general fund.
Yeah.
Because we are trying to build that fund up. And if there's, whatever dollars are in there from closed projects could be returned to the general
Well-
fund. And we don't have to wait till the end of the year to do that, correct?
Well, typically, if you were going to go through your CNRE fund and, you know, determine what projects were completed so that you could allocate it to a fund balance, you would allocate it to a fund balance within the CNRE fund.
Well,
I'm
then
just-
let's cut it,
I'm just, you know.
right?
Well, if
Eh,
you find,
We've
I'm
come full
for it.
circle, let's just cut it
if you
then.
find money
you're
during
saying-
the off-season that you think are dead projects, I haven't seen one come up yet, then you could always slide it over to your reval next year
Right,
and reduce
right.
your payment next year,
Right.
which will be the balance.
Right.
Then it would be used, the money would, it would have some use, that we would get value of
All this
it,
is
it
gonna be
wouldn't
spent.
just, yeah.
So I just think that at some point in the not too distant future, we have to identify the dead projects.
I
And,
think they're hard.
you know, if there are
Well,
any,
some- well,
there
it's
might
all
be a
small
couple.
balance.
but, like any other fund, it can have a fund balance. I mean, you know,
Correct.
so that it can be solvent and be helpful to you. So I would be wary of just having it be like the acquisition plan of the future, I guess, for each fund, because we've had some where we weren't always bidding out and getting the exact dollar amount. So, you know, I think that, you know, that's a different animal in my mind, you know, where the acquisition plan is more precise as to the value
Expenditures.
of the things being purchased. But the CNRE account, to me, still is, you know, it's kind of its own animal, which needs its own fund balance. So that's just thinking, but beside that point, I just think we haven't, you know, I couldn't say anything right now until I would see, you know, what is, what should be in there or not, and what we've, you know, have passed on, that we could really truly get rid of. So that, yeah, and I think it's a good off-season.
So if Jason and John are both in agreement as well, then we'll take the action item this summer, June, July, something, when things slow down a little bit, to do a housekeeping of the CNRE funds and make sure that all our dollars are working for us, that the dollars that are in dead projects get reallocated to the reval or some other project that we think is gonna actually get done. And it's gonna be more of a housekeeping thing, but then next year when we go to do our budget, we're gonna know that we need to allocate whatever the remainder is. Does that sound right?
So we don't want to take any out of that
We
for
don't,
this budget season?
we
To
haven't-
Lower the reval item?
we haven't seen anything that says, here's the value that we're gonna move. We just got a general feeling that there might be some small projects in there,
Yeah.
but those small projects might total up to $300. I don't know what
Well,
small
I'd like to see the
projects
money
means.
taken out, and if we really need it, we'll find it somewhere else. If we don't take it out, then it's just gonna sit there, and It's gonna inflate the capital number more than it needs to.
I would support that. If somebody were to make a motion, or, you
I'd be
know,
happy to do
I
that.
guess we can make a motion. If it dies on the vine, it dies, but, I mean, I feel better making that motion.
Trying to realize some gains out of it.
Yeah, all right, so,
I'll make a motion to reduce the CNRE, the reval line in the capital plan by 25,000
for this year
for the-
only,
for this year. Yeah.
25,000?
Mhm.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we got a motion to decrease the CRNE line for the reval for the 2020 budget by 25,000. And we have a second. Any further conversation? My opinion is, we don't know enough to know that that's there. So what we're doing is we're just taking a need that we know we have this year and we're moving it down next year. So we've just increased the need next year for 25,000. Because I'm gonna be a pessimist, and I'm gonna say when we're done looking at all the little scraps in CRNE, they're not gonna add up to 25,000, they're gonna add up to 2,500.
Right, but we're already overfunded by 200,000 in there for this year.
For this year, but we're putting away for larger projects for down years. So every year, the amount going in isn't the same as the amount coming out.
I understand
But over
that.
a larger period of time, the expectation is the amount going in is equal to the amount coming out. So this year, we may have excess, but it's digging a hole for next year, I think. Or let me put it better, I don't know if it is or not. I don't have information that tells me that there's 25,000 excess in there right now.
If it is, we'll find the money somewhere. We always do.
Okay. Any other conversations?
I'm just uncomfortable with doing that, because next year we're gonna have to add 25 to the 130.
No, we're gonna keep the payment for next year.
Then
We're just gonna take it out this year
So
because,
then we're gonna be 105 short.
no, we won't, because there's already a balance in this fund.
Well, I sort of agree
There's
with,
a $500,000 in here right now.
I know.
Anna's analysis for the assessment was that the two CNRE line items for this year and next year were required to meet the estimated cost for the assessment. Is that correct? Yes. So if we don't find any other money, and I won't say we are or aren't, if we don't find any other money, then next year we have to pay the additional amount that we took out this year. Is that correct?
So if we take
Okay.
the money out of that and put it in fund balance, at least it's there.
But we can do that off-season.
We can
right?
do
When
it
we
now.
clean-
Well,
well,
no,
we don't
Anna-
know what's gonna be.
Bill, Anna just explained that it typically won't go back to fund balance. It would be reallocated to something else in CNRE. Did I understand that correctly, Anna?
It would go to like an undesignated account and to be allocated for future projects.
But we couldn't move to mid-year, put those funds back into the general fund balance. That's
I wouldn't-
typically not done.
I wouldn't recommend doing that, because that defeats the purpose of establishing your CNRE fund.
But if you have excess from projects that are complete, you can take action to move it back to the general fund, correct? If I allocate $86,000 for a truck and I buy the truck for $82,000, I got $4,000 excess. Understand NRE's not gonna fund, I'll use a different example, I'm gonna buy a widget, whatever I'm gonna buy. I'm gonna have $4,000 more in that NRE account than I expected to spend. Right?
Yes.
That $4,000, can I transfer that now back to the general fund because it's $4,000 on an unused project?
You know, you typically would not do that. You would leave it unallocated in your CNRE fund to appropriate for a project in the future.
How come?
It's the way that
you-
you set up your CNRE
I think you want a
fund.
fund balance in your CNRE account. I think you
Is
just.
there an undesignated fund balance? An undesignated spot on this?
Yeah,
Well,
at what point?
Unallocated?
So I think you've hit it. So, yeah, I think actually the issue, and just beginning to discuss this, is that then you would simply not put in more money into your CNRE account if it's sufficient.
Which is
So,
exactly where we are right now.
Yeah, but the
Right.
difference.
That's the issue.
Then it
and
acts
I
as
understand,
a
but-
contingency account, right?
The difference
Then it
is-
just acts as if the HVAC system doesn't work in a building, we're gonna go fix it, we're gonna pull out of a contingency account. the sidewalks need fixing, we're just gonna go scoop money out and fix it.
But no, but you know, we're already budgeting for those items, we're already saving for those items. All we're trying to do is get a handle on what the unused portion of capital projects has been, and reallocate that maybe to the reval line.
But we don't know that
But we don't know what it is.
Looking over your
But
sheet,
based
it might be
on
10,000.
what we did tonight with the vehicle acquisition fund, you know, that was $40,000, 80 and 60? I mean, $140,000 we over budgeted in vehicle acquisition. So of that $500,000 that's in the CNRE account, we can't find 25 grand that wasn't used by all these past projects? I'm willing to take the risk.
Okay. Any other conversation about the motion before us? Okay. So we have a motion to move $25,000 out of this year's CRNE for the reval. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Abstained?
Abstain. I still don't have enough information.
That's why I'm opposed, because I don't have enough information to be for.
I agree with
Yes.
what you're saying, I just
Okay.
haven't looked at it enough to.
That's fine.
So I agree with what we're trying to do. I don't think that we have the information to do it now. Okay,
Let's move on.
Okay.
moving right along.
We're gonna put it on the agenda for July or June. And
Yeah.
we can-
And I think that we're gonna end up moving it from NRE to the reval. Any scraps that we find, we'll move it to next year's reval.
We
And-
won't have to,
Well, we have to.
because we're fully funding what the cost is this year and next year, so we don't have to add to the reval next year. If
But we
we're-
haven't funded next year's yet. Next year's,
Next year.
They're
will be in
asking
next
for
year's budget.
130.
Same
right.
Right.
process.
So if we do housekeeping,
So we're
we
not gonna
find
add to-
$30,000, then next year we'll do 100,000, and we'll have the other 30.
Okay.
We won't find it.
I thought you meant added to the
I think it's
130.
No,
Okay.
no, we
Well,
will
that
do.
wasn't very clear.
All right,
Jason abstained.
yes.
I did, yes.
So the motion failed.
Yes. Okay, continuing down the capital path. Has anybody got any other areas of capital that we think we have latitude to decrease?
I think, Bill, yesterday we discussed the two vehicles, public safety vehicles, 50,000 each. And I think there was consensus on reducing that number. And I guess the question was, reduce it to 30 or perhaps 35, depending on,
Right.
what might work if these vehicles need to be retrofitted and what would be fair. So I'd like to just, get some ideas on that. That was my list of to-dos tonight, was to talk about that, and maybe Mark
The cost of what a
can
Blazer is these days, or these,
shed some light.
small SUVs, 35, I'd be comfortable with, but I'd be not comfortable with an F-250.
Sure.
Vehicles are typically just used to get around, go to appointments. So I'm comfortable with the reduction. 30, I don't know what's too high for 30. Just throw 35 up there, up to 35, and I think we'll find something suitable. I think the cost of Chris's vehicle was 30. The Expedition was 30,000 back in 2009.
Okay, so that gives you an idea, yeah, okay.
I don't know.
Yeah,
Joe's not here, the other fellow's here who prices and specs these things out, but we should be able to find a small, mid-size SUV, whatever you
Yeah.
call these things.
Okay.
They need a little bit more than a Ford Escape.
Right.
right,
Okay, they're emergency vehicles.
But
can
they don't
go
need a
fire,
super
so-
cab.
Yeah,
right.
so we'll
Yeah.
find something
So
with a
thanks
high
for that.
wheelbase, if that's how you say it, a little off the ground, and they can carry gear in the back, and that won't look like,
Yeah, here it comes.
Westport Country Club.
Yeah.
That won't be. I think a $35,000 vehicle is appropriate, and that would reduce the payments in the first year of acquisition.
Okay, thanks for that, Mark.
35%. I think that's the number. quick figure, 15,000 off of 50
Let's see what that is.
Times two.
times 2. Well, yeah.
Well, it's still the same percent, right?
Yeah,
30% off a
so those were.
100. 30,000 comes out in total. Are we talking about the 50,000 in emergency management?
Fire marshal's office and the chief.
And
uh,
of
Flanders.
Flanders,
The-
right.
So the
Oh.
Flanders.
Two.
the
So both of them.
F-250s.
These two.
Yeah.
So that would be 70 grand total. First total cost to
Right.
save, but not acquisition
So
payments.
100,000, 70,000.
Yeah,
Up to. So,
Okay.
and again, we'll be looking, if a Blazer is 30 or 29, especially coming off the state number, that's,
Mhm.
that's probably the right vehicle, right?
are you in support of these two new vehicles?
They need to be redone. It's not so much that vehicle in the fire marshal's office, it's what Chris used to drive, it's the deputy fire marshal's vehicle. The part-timers drive around, and that vehicle needs to go. So then we get a fire marshal's new vehicle, he would hand his down.
Cascade.
So, it's the red one, that you may have seen, that, well, it's parked
mean,
in front of, say, I go home that way, it's across from your office. That one needs to go. There might be a plan to hand that down,
think I
but
read
I
that.
actually think,
I think I
Does it
read
say
that,
it?
I read that somewhere, but I
Yeah.
don't know where, that was the plan to,
hand down engineering, so what we wanna do is, take away some of the expenses of, travel, we talked about that last night, 2 nights ago. For Mulholland, Geisel, and the assistant to the building inspector, they don't have vehicles, to share a pooled vehicle. And you pool that, for as long as it makes sense, but we could save some on the, travel.
Okay, that's good,
expenses.
I like it.
So do we think we're gonna decrease the acquisition fund by another 10,000 spread over 3 years?
So.
How much a year is this gonna?
So you could, for each of the vehicles, it would be a $4,300 savings
Per-
in what's in the, what
per year.
we planned, yes.
Per year?
Right, because the payment we have
15.
is
30,000.
11,000, well, it's actually, oh, it's 50,000, okay, so
50,000.
it's actually more,
so it's
okay.
more.
Oh, it's less.
You said it was
All right,
seven something.
So it
was
was
doing
gonna
it
be,
on that.
Undo.
it was gonna be 10,700.
86.
Right.
So 3225 per vehicle.
Savings.
James,
Mm-hmm.
3225.
Per
times
year
2.
per vehicle.
And that's coming out of 724 for the line 465?
Well, actually, 3225 would come out of two accounts. It would be,
Vehicle acquisition.
32.
Oh, per vehicle this is.
Mm.
I like it.
So
They come from different
3225
pools.
out of the emergency,
out of the Flanders, which is the 462 account.
462, 3225 coming out. Okay,
And then the 465 is the emergency management.
yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay,
I have-
so do we have any more conversation about decreasing the value of these two vehicles that are currently in 462 and 465? Decrease them to a slightly more realistic vehicle.
No more discussion on that from me.
No further conversations
So,
Well, I wouldn't say that.
about
Just on
these
this
two
item.
vehicles.
oh, no, not on that.
I'll quantify, qualify, and rectify. Go ahead. About these two?
Is there, no,
Oh, okay.
You can do motions all the way through, or you're just gonna add this thing up?
I'd like to just add it all up, as long as we got a clean record on what the, so now we're in the general government, so we started out on capital, now we're kinda going into, because these two vehicles are in the general government
No,
bucket.
they're in capital.
They're still in the
Yeah,
capital.
they're still, yeah.
Okay.
It's on your list.
Let me just
It's on
see.
your colored
Three,
list.
two,
Lisa,
two,
what do you have?
5, 3,
I
2,
totaled
2,
up, here's my
5.
numbers. I have the 49, from all the savings here. I
Yeah.
have 4965, the 11,865 for the super cab that we talked about earlier. Now, I don't know how we want to handle the Board of Ed thing. I guess we'll put that separate, huh?
Mhm.
We should take that out of here.
Isn't it?
It's in the capital
It's in the
plan.
capital